Hi, everyone. It's Colin McEwen from the New Fly Fisher. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you're seeing this well. This is our first experiment using StreamYard and being on Facebook Live as well as on YouTube. And I want to welcome you to our show. Hi, Jerry. And we're going to talk about a lot of things today. And most important today, what I want to talk about first is YouTube. This weekend, we've got 2 new shows coming up on our YouTube channel, and I want to thank everyone who has subscribed. Unbelievably, we're over 14 million views now, and I think last time I checked, we're about 1.3 million views per month. So that's all thanks to you. It looks like YouTube is probably our best broadcaster. You know, it's great being on PBS, on the World Fishing Network, Sportsman's Channel Canada, and other networks. But YouTube seems to have that ability, I think, because it's 24/7. Of reaching everyone, and more importantly, everyone can watch when they want and where they want. So today, I'm very fortunate to have Eric Lund from Sagami Lodge joining us, and I'm going to see if I can get him to come and join us and send him an invite here. So just bear with me. Still getting the kinks out of this. So there we go. Sent the invite. And hopefully we won't have too many problems. Oh, Jerry says he watched 3 episodes on YouTube yesterday. You're having trouble getting to sleep, were you, Jerry? We're really excited about this new means. Orvis has been doing it for the last month or so, and Tom Rosenbauer told me about StreamYard. We were always a little bit reluctant to do something like this, but if we can make this work, every Wednesday, one of our hosts, could be myself, could be Mark, could be Bill, we'll host one of these events, and we're going to have fly fishers. We could have Joe Humphreys on here, we have George Daniels, Tom Rosenbauer, as well. We can have other people like lodge owners like Eric today, and guides, other people in the community that you'd like to hear from and ask some questions. What is the best fly you recommend for alligator gar? Good question, Trenton. Good, Trenton. I hear actually a piece of rope with no hook is all you need. And the guys up here use that for gar pike quite successfully. Now we're having a little trouble getting Eric in, and hopefully he'll be able to join us here shortly. One of the things we're going to talk about today, and a lot of people got questions about, is coming to Northern Ontario. As we all know, the border's closed to the USA, and I've certainly received a ton of emails and messages through Facebook talking about this very issue because people are concerned. They want to come up to Canada, they're waiting for the border, they want to know what's going on up here. So we want to talk about that. We want to talk about COVID-19, what the impact has been. And of course, here in the province, there's a lot of Canadians that are interested in going up to Northern Ontario. They want to know about what's going to happen when businesses are allowed to operate again, when they are. The government, I think, is actually coming out with more announcements tomorrow. The Premier is going to announce some new openings and how they're going to do it. And for obvious reasons, they're going to stage this over the next couple months to make sure public safety is number one. And hi, Tracy from California. Thanks for joining us. And thanks for the kind words, everyone, that you're putting up there. I appreciate it. And I hope you're enjoying all the videos we're putting up on YouTube. As many of you know, on our Facebook page, we're putting up quite a few videos every day. In our YouTube channel, normally we're just putting up 4 videos a week. Right now, we're putting a video up every day. I got to tell you, it's a tremendous amount of work, but I think everybody likes it, especially since everyone's in isolation and going a little bit crazy. I actually shaved. I had a beard going here, and I had to shave it for not just for this event. Actually, I shaved it for Mother's Day because my wife told me how much she hated it, and it made me look older. Something to do with the gray, but I shaved it last Friday, so she had a nice clean face on her husband for the weekend. Okay, so I'm going to try again. So let me just check with Eric and see what he's doing, and see if he's got it. I'm going to text him. He's having trouble getting in for some reason, and we tested this yesterday and today. And I'm hoping we can get them in here. I'll try again. So try another email to them. See if that works. I'm not sure why it's not going through, but that is some of the problems we sometimes have in using new technology. And every time you think you've got it all straightened, you have problems. And that's why you try to test everything before. And we did actually, we just did it like an hour ago and everything seemed to work, but it's not working now. Oh, Eric says he's got the invite. So I can close this. And hopefully he's going to appear here in a second and join me to discuss it. So while we're waiting for Eric to join, I will say first off, I'm going to try and keep up with all the comments here. And thanks everyone for chirping in with your kind words. And hello to David in Sweden. And thanks for watching the show. And somebody's looking to the Blue Fox show we're going to be coming out with at Blue Fox Camp in Algoma. And greetings to Pennsylvania. Man, I sure wish I could get down to Pennsylvania. We wanted to go down there this May for the hatches, but that won't be happening for obvious reasons. And I was also hoping to go see Joe Humphreys down in State College area. So I still seem to be having a problem. I'm going to text him again. And hopefully this is going to work. I don't think it's my internet connection because I tested that as well. And hello to the gentleman from Spain. Thanks for joining us. I know we have a lot of people from all over the United States, Canada, and internationally that are following us on YouTube. And I want to thank everyone. I mean, we're one of the top YouTube channels in the world of fly fishing. It's a smaller group, but I got to tell you, it's been a lot of work, but we're awfully proud of it. And I want to thank our entire production team. You know, Mark and myself, Bill, and the rest of our hosts are really proud of our cameramen and our editors who make this thing happen. And we're also looking for your input because your feedback's really valuable to us because we want to try and improve our production quality and give you those videos you want to see, instructional, destinational, whatever it is. We're going to try and achieve what you want and give you a good quality channel that has all the content you want. Okay, good news. I got Eric. Eric?
Good day, Mr. McEwen.
Hey, Eric. Sorry, I don't know what we had a little funny. I was just saying we tested this all, but you know, this is part of using new technology. We had a few problems. Everyone, this is Eric Lund from Sagami Lodge. He actually lives in Southern Ontario, but his lodge is just outside of Nikina. It's a fly-in lodge. I went there the first time in 2009. And Eric, welcome to our first Facebook Live event.
Oh, thank you for having me on the inaugural flight here.
Well, and I appreciate you getting over the few bumps we've had. So there's going to be a ton of questions here on the right. As you can see, it's just scrolling by quickly. And hello to Cape Breton, by the way, one of my favorite places to go. I love the Margarita River. It's where I learned to fly fish. We'll try and keep up the questions, but you know, Eric, first I'd like to start this whole thing off about how and why we decided to do this, because you contacted me earlier in the week. You're telling me about how things were going. Right now, obviously, there's a lot of lodges that made the decision not to open this year because they've had so many cancellations of bookings. You told me you'd had some cancellations, but it wasn't too bad. Your big issue, of course, is just waiting to see when the border opens for your American guests. Yeah. But you also have a lot of Canadian guests and people coming up. But again, they're waiting for you to be able to open, for the travel restrictions to be lifted, things like that. And then, of course, COVID-19 and the impact and the things you're doing there. So we have a lot of things to talk about. And of course, the most important thing is the great fishing that I can personally attest to that you have at your lodge. I'm a big fan of catching, you know, big pike on a big northern pike on a fly. But even more importantly, I love catching brook trout. So first, Eric, why don't you tell us a little bit about your lodge?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a fishing lodge up in northern Ontario, specifically Roughly between Thunder Bay and James Bay. So a fishing lodge that we have rivers and lakes that flow into the Arctic watershed, so north. And what's great about that is we do get a chance to offer some real good variety in the type of fish you can go for. The main fish being walleye and pike, and then of course the brook trout fishing in the rivers that flow north from there. So it's a great variety. And my wife Sue and I have had the lodge now for well over 25 years, and maybe a few years beyond that yet. So, and honestly, I can't think of another year in all the years, and we love what we do, where I've wanted to get back up north worse than this year. Just feels like we're coming out of this long hibernation.
Yes, and we're all going a little crazy, which is why there's so much interest. And I was saying earlier that I'm getting so many emails and messages from people. I think all the hosts are, from people who had trips booked that had to cancel, that are looking for places to go. This could be Canadians who are looking to go, internal to the province because they were maybe going to Italy this year, or they're going somewhere in the States, or they're going somewhere they can't go. Or the other one is that, of course, our American friends that come up here, and they're wondering about the border, when's it going to open.
Yeah.
Just to address that, I've seen a few people come by on the feed here saying, when is the border opening? Well, it looks like they're going to announce it tomorrow, but the first bit's out, and it's closed till the 19th of June right now. Our hope is that it does open by the July 4th weekend. That's my hope. But again, it's up to the two countries to make a decision about this based upon where the virus is at, where they're at with the safety protocols, and getting obviously over the hump of where the pandemic is. So hopefully it is 1st of July. It could be the 1st of August. We don't know. But either way, the important thing is you're open, Eric. Like, you're planning to be open. You're getting set. You're not open, obviously, yet.
Right.
But with any luck, and once the Premier and the government of Ontario says you can, you're going to open up. Yeah. Why don't we talk about that and what you're planning to do, and let's talk about June. Like, what's the plans for right now?
Well, absolutely. Like I said, it's felt like we're coming out of this long hibernation, and everybody wants to get. Just gonna close this off here. Everybody wants to get out and do something in the great outdoors. So, thankfully, we have our province has been very, very cautious and is slowly opening up the economy, and I think that's a great approach to this whole issue. It's allowing businesses to really have time to get safety measures in place, to evolve their businesses, to accommodate this new way of life that we have. And it's starting to happen. They're beginning to see some of the provincial parks open up, conservation areas, and businesses such as golf courses and marinas are given the go ahead to prepare. So I think that approach is really going to allow businesses to, when they do get the go ahead and the approval from the province, that they can open up safely and conduct business that is going to be good for their employees, for the community, and for themselves. So, having said that, in Northern Ontario, we are very fortunate to have some organizations that have, both represent local northern communities and regions that we are going to look to, and are great sources to have information, procedures flow through. And then I think with our own individual businesses and how we are going to also take steps to ensure the safety of our guests and employees. I think that together, it's going to take an effort from all ends. And I really think once we do get the go ahead, that whether you're a fishing lodge or outfitter, or you're running hiking or kayak or canoeing companies, that a motel, supplies, that everyone is going to have procedures and in place, so we can get through this and operate in a safe manner that is going to be good for our customers, for our staff, employees, and for the communities that we're located in.
Okay, so I'll tell you what, we'll come back to some of the protocols and things like that. And we've certainly touched base about where we're at right now. Somebody asked, is it true that it's going to be the 19th of June for when the border could possibly reopen? The official announcement will be coming out tomorrow, is my understanding.
Right.
The same day that the Premier is going to be coming out with the next level of openings here in the province. But, the bottom line is, 19th of June, I think that's a reasonable guess. And if anything, I think it might even be pushed to 1st of July. But who knows? I mean, it's day by day, week by week. But I will say this, Eric, and this is for you and for all the operators in Northern Ontario, is that you've all got bookings. The ones that are staying open and haven't told their customers are closing, you still have your bookings, and those people just keep in contact with you. We'll follow the bouncing ball and see where this goes. And one of the things that people should know that I thought was great is that some lodges and some resorts in Northern Ontario, I was talking to a resort last week about this, a lot of them are extending their season. Like you're looking at extending your season because you already know there's people who want to come. There's so much pent-up demand, whether it's in the GTA, it's down in Ohio, or whatever. People want to get out. I mean, they're going a little crazy like I am. I want to go fishing. No, we can't, but they can possibly come to your place in September if the border opens, whether it's July 1st, August 1st, whatever, and the province comes out with what the health requirements are going to be. I mean, there's a lot of things that are still coming. They've got to fall into place, but the bottom line is you're getting ready for them. That's what I really like, Eric, and you're like me. I'm looking at the glass half full. We're going to be looking at the future and what's going to happen. I mean, this isn't even happening to us, as you can imagine, Eric. We've got a plan for where we want to go and shoot shows. We got operators who want us to come. We've got things we want to shoot, types of fishing. We can't move yet. No, because we're not allowed to.
Yeah, it's new ground for all of us, and every business is trying to figure out a way to stay afloat, and there's been some very good assistance in that. But so that's part of what we're trying to do here is to throw some ideas out there and just float a positive note to that. You know what? We're allowed to, once we're allowed to open and get running, we are going to be ready, and not like we get there and go, well, wait, maybe we should do this. We're going to hit the ground running. Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks for all the nice comments, everyone. And it's I'm sorry we couldn't put Bill on this actual first premier event. We'll put the eye candy on maybe next week. And when we do the next one, and I see Ted Putnam's in here from Hawk Lake Lodge watching, and I'm hoping to invite him to be on next week's event. He's in Northwestern Ontario. He has a great lodge, and like you, he's still planning to open. He's still going through all the processes of getting ready to open.
Yeah.
And normally he'd be at his lodge and getting it ready, and the first guest to be there, but he can't. He can't even get across the border. He lives in Massachusetts, even though his lodge is in Northwest Ontario.
Well, the new normal is something that you can't really call it that, I don't think, because everything is evolving so much. And I'm usually, I would have been up north probably at least 10 days now trying to open up the lodge. And interestingly, my wife and I, Sue and I, were having a very lively discussion the other day. And she just stopped and looked at me and said, "Aren't you usually up north by now?" So, we're all kind of adjusting to this new way of life, but we're really hoping to be able to get up there very shortly, and looking forward to, I think tomorrow as well, the Premier is going to unfold another stage or some of the direction of it. So we're going to be hopeful that will be another step in the right direction.
Okay, so I want to talk about the protocols you're doing at COVID-19, but it's not for COVID-19, and obviously they're going to change as the health department comes out in Algoma with some of the protocols they have. But before we get into that, I think it's real important to talk about fishing, because that's the primary reason we're here. I mean, I want to talk about your lodge. I want to talk about some of these issues, and it's really great you're open, but I want to tell people about my experiences coming to your lodge. The first time I came there was in 2009.
Right.
And you took me out, and I caught one of my first giant pike that was over 40 inches. And I remember it was in like 6 feet of water in a clump of weed beds. And then, of course, you took me for the brook trout fishing, and you've got two different places for brook trout. You've got the Wonderland, which is a cold feed area. The brook trout aren't particularly big there, but they're and they're very clear water, but they're good size, they're fun to catch, and they're absolute gems. And then, of course, you've got the Sagami River. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about the types of fishing you've got at the lodge?
Yeah, absolutely. So, following into the trout fishing there, the little spring lakes are really nice because they're very close to the camp. You don't have to commit a whole day to the trip, and they are good all summer long because it's landlocked and very cold, so that the fish stay in the lakes. And you can fish both with streamers and dries. We get some nice hatches out of there with caddis and mayflies. As well as just the scenery in there, as you remember, is quite spectacular. Very crystal clear water. So a little different type of fishing, where it's more small lake fishing.
Yeah, can I jump in here, Eric? I want to say a couple points here. First,
Sure.
The first is that what they have there, you'll see actual holes in the bottom of these ponds. It's a series of little ponds all connected, and you can put your hand in. It's ice cold water. It's like you put your hand on a piece of ice. It's so cold, upwelling. And that's one of the reasons why when people ask me, I want to go fishing in the middle of summer, where are some good areas to go? You're above Lake Nipigon, and that whole watershed up there above Lake Nipigon, it's all spring fed, ice cold water going into those lakes, and which is one of the reasons why when we have a hot summer, you still have good fishing. I mean, all the fishing, even in your main lake, they're going the walleye going around where the upwellings are.
Yeah.
To get the cooler water, and then of course around them are the pike, right?
Absolutely. And if you think about it, it's really only 5 months of the year that there is not ice on the lake up in that area, on the lakes in that area. So it's a later spring usually. But our spring fishing, and everyone thinks about open area. Well, I've got to be there the first weekend or the first or second week of the season. But really, we have for the first 4 to 5 weeks of the season, it's a spring opener. It's just a much colder, slower body of water to warm up, and so the fish characteristics and where they move in the different places. It's a little bit more consistent, and there isn't they just don't leave the spawning areas and disappear into deep water. You can chase pike all spring in very shallow water, sight fish them. And then the other thing too is the river that we run river trips for Brook Trout on is really quite an amazing adventure, and we have great guides that will take you down through the runs and plunge pools and rapids and gravel beds. And it's really, the trip itself is a really great adventure. Often seeing moose and bear on occasion, and definitely lots of eagles and that. And then there's the the beautiful brook trout that are range typically from about a pound to 5 to 6 pounds would be our top end fish. Absolutely a beautiful place to fish. And if you can go back to when you were a kid, and for myself growing up in southern Ontario, I would go out brook trout fishing and get on my hands and knees on a brook in the back of a farmer's field and poke a pole through the cedars and flip a little 6 or 7 inch brook trout up into the grass and go looking for them. And then fast forward 25 or 20 years, and then now you're in a big steelhead river. You're fishing nice big brook trout, and if you kind of built your base from crawling on your hands and knees and in those little streams to be on big water like that and get a chance to tie into some of the nice brook trout we have, it's really awesome. Absolutely. It never gets old. Never gets old.
So I want to add a few things to it. So the brook trout there are very beautiful. And you've got, the river's got so many different types. They got runs, pools, they've got, I remember throwing flies near structure, fallen trees. You got a little bit of everything. You get in a canoe and go down the river, and then you come back up in the canoe. And how long is the river? You fish what? You've got like 35 miles? Or
yeah,
more?
It's around, from where the main lodge is, and of course we flow north, so the river flows up, which sounds a little odd, but yeah. In essence, the outflow of the Esnagami River to where the river meets the Little Current is about a 50-mile, 60-mile run. So wow. We utilize the top 25 maybe miles of it. We also have a couple outpost camps down the river, and we do run some trips in there. And there's also a unique trip that we've introduced the last couple of years, which is an overnight river trip. So instead of going down and coming back up in the same day, you can, if there is availability, we can do an overnight adventure and add a overnight at the outpost camp and a campfire. And that's also available. So either way you take the trip, it is definitely a memorable adventure.
So I want to add to something about the brook trout. Two things, actually. First, I want to talk about a few years ago, Algoma ran a contest, and some of the people that are here might remember it. We had this contest where they could win a trip, and there was 7 or 8 lodges that were on the list. And of course, the winners, who turned out to be the first Canadians, because we ran it a few years, it was always people from the United States that had won it, were from Trenton, Ontario.
Right.
And they were new to fly fishing, and it was so cool. I ended up coming up with them, as you recall, and we took him out pike fishing, and it was quite something to watch him and that look on his face when he hooked into his first big pike and it ran off. But the brook trout, and I remember going to the first pool, and I was sitting down from where you were. The cameraman was shooting you, and the husband and the wife was sitting beside him in the canoe, and you were having them. I think you were using a nymph or a woolly bugger, but putting it through the run. And he hadn't been there 2 minutes, and he hooks into this fish, and it goes by us. And I said to one of the guides who was helping us, I said, "Look at the size of that walleye. That's a big walleye." And then it came back, and we went, "Oh my goodness, that's a brook trout." It had to be a 22 to 24 inch brook trout. It was huge.
It came up to the surface, and that was Peter and Mary. They were
thank you. I couldn't remember their names.
A wonderful couple, and so that was we've all started fly fishing and fishing in particular, but for those that have picked up a fly rod, I really enjoyed the way the show came out in that, because it was literally Peter had never casted a fly rod, and so it was a progression in the course of a week from flailing away a little bit on the main dock, and I'm kind of going, oh well, we have our work cut out for us. And credit to Peter, he put a lot of time every night. I can't believe his arms weren't falling off by the end of the week. But he started to pick it up, and we did the combination of pike fishing, and then we went down the river. And so when the other thing too is when you've got a 2, 3, or 4 pound plus brook trout on, and it makes a run, it has to take drag, and that's where the problem was, because in fly fishing there's a little bit more where you're using your hands a lot as the retrieve to create a drag. And I think on that one particular fish there, I think Peter just froze up, grabbed the reel, hung on, and the line just broke. So lesson learned, and a little bit of crying in the background by me for sure. As a guide, I've always for years tried to figure out what is it about fishing that really, whether you're fly fishing or spin fishing or you're out with your friends or family, what is it about this crazy sport that people are so drawn to? And I really feel it's a shared experience. So it's great to catch big fish. But when you are out with someone, a friend, or you're guiding someone, and they get into a fish of a lifetime, you share and understand how cool and great that is. So that's where it isn't always about what you are catching in that, and certainly as a guide, that's not at all. But it was really great to see Peter progress, and then I believe we were down to the last day, and he had caught a couple of mid-30s, nice 10, 12 pound northerns, and we were working a shallow bay, and I just noticed he hit his stride. Now he had the rhythm, he was casting well, and sure enough, we ended off that show with a 39-inch pike that Peter hooked, and caught, and worked the drag perfectly, and it was like a full circle in 6 short days.
Yeah. Well, and if people want to see that actual video in the episode that we did for the TV show, I've actually got it coming up in the Facebook page, our Facebook page at 4 o'clock. Just click on it, go to the link to our YouTube channel, and you can watch the full show. And of course, we're forgetting about Mary, because poor Mary, probably broke off 2 or 3 brook trout that people would be calling a trophy of a lifetime. I remember the one because I saw it on cameraman, didn't get it, but it was easily 4 or 5 pounds. But anyways, we won't go over what could have been. They got some fish.
They did,
and
yeah.
he got a great pike. And these were people who were brand new to fly fishing, so the fishing's really good. And the second point I wanted to bring up about the brook trout is that there's been so much said about this. I'm talking to Joe Humphreys down in Pennsylvania, and Joe wants to come to your lodge. He's after me because he said, Colin, I want to catch big pike on a fly before I die, and I'll get some of those big brook trout. And he's been to Labrador with me, but he really wants to come to your place. So hopefully we make that happen.
He's caught some big brook trout in Labrador, I'm sure.
He did, but it's a different experience, and to combine it with the northern pike fishing, that's pretty special. There's not a lot of places you can do this. And of course, you've got your no black fly guarantee, which that's fantastic.
Right. But there is a spot.
You're not buying into that, are you?
there is a box you have to check off where you can't shake the bushes. So
that's true. Hey, I just got to say something, Jerry. Thanks for the advertising. Yes, Sunset Country is great in Northwest Ontario. All of Northern Ontario is fantastic. It's a great fishery, whether you're a fly fisher or a spin fisher. And of course, Eric, you've got a great place because, as I said at the start, what I really like about your region is the cold water. The cold water is so important to have a great season, not just in May and June, like is typical for a lot of places, but you have a great season all the way through till you close in September.
Yeah, so it's quite consistent, and there are certain times of the year where there are some, like for the brook trout fishing in the river, the first part of the season, first 5-6 weeks of the season, while water levels are high and cooler, is your prime time for brook trout there. Pike fishing is for the most part quite consistent for the whole season, as is the walleye, but we do have, once we get to mid-summer, say mid-July or so, first, second week of July and on, the weed beds develop and the pike move into the weed beds. Esnagami is a pretty clear lake, so it is a very visual place to fish, which is nice. But because of that cooler water, as you're mentioning, the fish do stay in the top 4 to 6 foot of the water column. And on most days you're out, you will see big fish there. You may not hook every one. Yeah, but definitely you'll see they're there. And as we get on into mid to late summer as well, it starts to cool down. Mid-August is fall already up in that area. So once you get a few frosts and that, it tends to, what happens is the water cools from the surface down, bait fish move up to the upper part of the water column, and then big pike start moving more towards the surface. So that's when you can start having a lot of fun. If you're a spin fisherman using musky baits like big suics or creek chubs or that kind of thing, or definitely for the pike fishers, fly fishers, you can use, here's the fly right here, just a large deceiver model, or other flies that are a little bit more, here we are, I'll hold one up if I can kind of get it in the screen here. This is a popper, and this is a great fly to use in the fall time because it's just runs about a foot or two under the surface, and there's nothing more exciting than seeing those surface hits. And I like to compare hooking a big pike to, and I've said it before, if you have your neighbor and you hook your fly line on the end of a pickup truck and you have him take off, it's pretty similar to what that fight is like.
Yeah, and an interesting part of that is that a lot of people think that, I hear people make comments, oh, pike don't fight, but what they're thinking about are pike that you catch in the southern parts of the province where the water is much warmer.
Right.
When you have cold water pike, it's a whole different ball game on a 9-weight rod. They really run. I've had them go right into the backing, and people, those who haven't done it don't know, but if you have, it's great. And you brought up a couple good points there, Eric, about the flies. I got to tell you, you can catch some. I'm going to show this one that's called Northern Magic. It's a really fantastic pike fly that I like using for a streamer. But for topwater, and you were telling me that in September, you have some really good topwater action because the weed beds are fully mature. They're up to the top. You got the cold nights, but now you're getting the big pike that got the feed bag on. Exactly. And there's something about these. This is a Weedman slider done by Stu Thompson. Here's a larger version of it, easy to cast, made of deer hair. But you just need something that's going to be making a lot of noise on the surface? What would be equivalent, like a jitterbug or?
More like suics or creek chubs, larger crankbaits that are minnow imitating. That's what you're imitating with that. So again, because a lot of the bait fish are higher in the water, your smaller herring or whitefish are up feeding on them, and that's what gets those big pikes looking towards the surface. And you're imitating large bait fish for the most part that time of year.
Yeah, and then another trick that I got taught, that large deer hair popper that I was showing here. This is one done by Stu Thompson. And in case you're wondering why it's orange on the top, that's not to catch fish. That's so the camera can see it when it's going along at the top.
Right, correct.
But it also helps us as anglers to see it. But it's one of the things I got taught was, especially as it gets later in the season, if you strip it fast, it triggers them. And if you ever seen little baby ducks and they kind of like motorboat on the top, they just come charging after it when they get the feed bag on. And like you said, as you get those colder nights, they know winter's coming and they really they want to get fattened up for the winter. Yeah. I see Pete Bowman's joined us from Fishing Canada. Hey, Pete, good to see you join us. And Pete and Angelo have a great show, Fishing Canada, which we really love. And it does a little fly fishing, does spin fishing, but it goes all over Canada. And if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend it. I think it's on WFN in the States. And of course, they have a YouTube channel, which is fantastic. And have you had them to your place before?
I have, yeah. Hello, guys. And I have to admit, I had a little bit of a hard time getting a fly rod in Pete's hand, but he was. We did river trips. We chased some walleye around, and he got really, really big pike and absolute gentleman to fish with, and really enjoyed my time with him. So yeah, we really did. We had Pete up and Fishing Canada, and it was a real good show. We had, it was a little cool because it was right after ice out, and there was in fact a little ice to deal with on the lake. But it shows that right from the beginning of our season in through, and you've been up there in August on a couple of occasions as well. We have good quality fishing right through the season. So
I just had somebody ask about how to get a hold of you. Probably the best thing, I've put up your website, sagami.com, and then they can contact you. Now, one thing I want to reiterate that we talked about at the start here, people can call you, talk to you, whether it's to talk about this year or next year, but they can't book right now. Obviously, with the provincial rules right now, you can't take bookings, but you can certainly talk to them about what the opportunities can be. Hopefully when things get going, which we're hoping will be soon, but you can certainly talk to them and talk to them about what species they want, availability, things like that.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you want any more information, go to sagami.com, as I've got at the bottom of the screen. And I think the next thing we should talk about, which is really important, and it's really the driving force behind why we did this live event, besides the fact, I wanted to, great idea to have you talk about Sagami.
Sure.
But it's also to talk about COVID-19 and the concerns people have got. And I'm one of those people because unfortunately I've got a bit of a health condition. I've got a compromised immune system, and I'm worried. My wife's really worried, that if I go out there, I got to be careful. I've been isolated this whole time, but if I want to go out fishing, what are the things that I need to do is one, but what are the things that you can do as a lodge to help protect me and ensure that I'm safe, your staff's safe, and even the community where your lodge is based? I mean, obviously people are flying in from someplace.
Sure.
What those protocols are that you're doing to keep people safe. And I thought it was really great to hear. And Ted's another one. I know there's a bunch of lodges and resorts, I've talked to them, that are working on protocols right now to ensure the safety of their guests, the community, and of course their staff. So why don't we talk about some of the things you've done, Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are a very resilient bunch in the north. So I'm not surprised to hear that there are, a number of other outfitters and camps and businesses that are brainstorming and trying to figure out. We will come out of this, and I think the important is we in this, and you've heard it all along, and it's kind of like I roll my eyes a little bit as we're all in this together, but really it does point to the facts that whether your end destination is a lodge or whether you're driving up and using an outfitter or purchasing goods, you can arrange perhaps for curbside pickup, order your bait ahead of time, have the destination you're going to perhaps have your grocery order. So you're just minimizing the impact of stopping at multiple places. And ultimately, the most, I think, important thing, and I can't stress this big enough, is social responsibility. We've, over the last 2 months, we've come a long way. We've learned a lot. This is a pretty nasty piece of business we're dealing with here. And, we have to, until there is a final solution for it, life does go on. And again, credit to our leaders in Ontario and in Canada. We're in pretty, decent shape. And so the reason why some of these businesses are being allowed to open is because the curve is being flattened. And, we're taking it kind of 2 weeks and then looking back and seeing what happens. Is it jumping or not? But having said that, we've, my Sue and myself have sat down and we've spent a lot of time going through pretty much every detail of our operation. And we'll look to the local health department and various government guidelines and so on and so forth to get some more direction. But every business is unique, and I think ultimately that is going to require that business to, add to whatever those guidelines are to help make your customers and your employees feel safe and be in a good working environment like that. So.
Okay, let's get a little more specific if you don't mind, because the number one thing here for anybody that's watching is that obviously Eric and all the operators are going to do whatever the Department of Health says for the region, say where you are, Algoma, or wherever it is. They're all going to follow the protocols. Now, they're still developing them right now,
right,
but you're actually taking measures very specific to your resort. So a good example, you were telling me about how you're setting things up where the accommodations are going to be when people come and stay overnight before
right,
they fly in the morning. You're going to be taking, and that's to protect the community and keep people there. And if they need food, beer, stuff like that, you're arranging for it to be brought in for them, so they don't even have to go out to any community beer stores or anything like that. So the people, whether they're American or they're from Toronto, wherever they are, as things open, they can get their things without being involved in the community. So that's a way of protecting the community. And then they're going to stay at the hotel, special rooms that are cleaned, and then after they leave, the rooms will be cleaned again and sanitized. They come to the air base. The plane, as I understand it, has even got a plexiglass between the pilot and the customers in the back.
Yeah.
You have masks. I mean, can you go into a little bit? We could probably you got a lot, and you've got it in your flyer. You put your newsletter. You put out all the details, which was really great. But if you could touch on some of the top points about whether it's a flight in, or getting to the lodge, the meals, or it's even going out in the boat with a guide. Some of the things you're doing.
Yeah. So we kind of have tried to envision ourselves as a guest arriving at the float plane base or up to the northern destination and the float plane base, and what do we need to do to go through. So what will happen with the air services there is they do have plexiglass between the pilot and the passenger area. There'll be nobody that will sit up front with the pilot. Everyone on board will be onboarding will be required to wear masks, as does the pilot. Sanitize their hands, and then the plane will be cleaned and sanitized before each flight. So that is another important factor, I think, that needs to be said. So once you fly into the lodge, we will greet you there with a bottle of hand sanitizer and ask that you do that. And we're going to be so clean by the end of this, it's going to be crazy. But
okay, you've already said it. Getting the bottle of hand sanitizer, that's worth the flight right there, and the cost of the trip.
So what it is it's levels of filters that will hopefully, by the time you get to the destination, or certainly by the time you get to the lodge, as you start to become more comfortable. And it's awkward. We've all gone shopping and that. It is awkward, absolutely. So knowing that in advance, we're trying to meet it forefront. And so we'll have you off the plane and kind of set to the side, and our staff, as per usual, will bring your gear up to the cabin. So now your cabin is going to be completely cleaned and sanitized, and you'll be the only ones going in there for the week. So we aren't going to be offering daily housekeeping service. Normally we make beds and clean the cabin out. We're not going to do that this year. For any towels that you may want to have, we'll have a bin outside the cabin, and whatever in there, when we come by every day, we'll just replace as need be. Then as far as meals and that are concerned, and we're really not sure what's going to happen, whether we can offer dining room service or not, but we are definitely going to, and we have our chef Troy back. This is Troy's 4th year, and he is a phenomenal chef, and he's becoming a real good fisherman as well, I should say. So we really have look forward to his culinary delights that he puts out. But we'll offer a cabin service. So in other words, one of our gals will have a mask and gloves and bring your food to the cabin, much like I've quoted Uber Eats or Meals on Wheels. So if we can utilize the dining room, and understand that this year we're not going to be as busy as we typically are. We can accommodate probably 3 or 4 groups in corners of our dining room. We're going to serve family style. So we'll go out, we'll put the platters out, and then we'll invite you in to sit down and have your meal. And so, there'll be very little contact. Normally, and this was a great suggestion from Pete Bowman regarding greeting guests and that. I mean, we're all about the good firm handshakes and the high fives, and Sue's all about the hugs and that. And so this year we're going to have to be content with a shout out from a distance and, hey, how you doing? And welcome to Sagami. And we'll be able to communicate that, but just so it alleviates. And it's anything but awkward, as Pete said. A lot of us are old school, and it's going to be one to get used to, not shaking. But we're just going to have to do that right now. So our boats will also be cleaned out and sanitized at the end of each week, so they'll be ready to go for our guests. And you'll be the only one using that boat all week. So in our situation anyway. And so we'll, if need be, on a daily basis, we may need to come down and bail the boat out or clean it out, certainly gas it up. And the guys will have masks on and gloves, and they'll sanitize their way out of the boat. So we feel that this is really, because our boats are 18 foot long, we have enough room in there to create safe social distancing between guides and guests. Marv Betts, one of our guests from Toronto, raised a good point earlier today, and he said, "What about when we are getting in the boats and that?" And I said, "Well, probably we'll wear masks and gloves, and we suggest that guests do as well. And then once you're out on the water and seated, then you probably don't need them then." So just a few of the suggestions. We'll have hand sanitizers inside every cabin. We'll have them in front of any entrances to the lodge. We will, for guests that might want to have a walleye shore lunch or a couple of walleye meals, we'll have bins outside our fish cleaning cabin with your cabin number on it, and you just put your fish in the bins. And so we're really trying to, and we're certainly open to suggestions, as we do have this time right now to continue to properly prepare the best we can. Certainly open to anybody's suggestions on what they might deem to be more comfortable. But we just feel that if this can start, on the trip up and places along the way where, you may gas up or pick up supplies or wherever you're going, if we can get, all the northern suppliers and businesses kind of on the same page, I really hope we can create a good, safe atmosphere for people to feel safe to travel in and end up at a destination.
And I bet that's probably one of the number one questions you're getting from those people who are calling, because as you were saying to me, you've had 7 inquiries this week alone from people in Ontario alone who are interested in taking a trip and getting out of the city and going on a fishing trip, but they're concerned about safety protocols. And I want to just quickly jump in here and also mention that Ted Putnam, who sits on the committee for NOTO, brought up that they're actually working on those protocols to present to government, to have the health department look at and all that. So there's going to be more refinements as this goes down the pipe, and we get ready to open your business and everyone gets ready to open their business. It'll get more refined. But the bottom line is you're getting ready, you're getting the things in place. And yeah, I saw somebody mention about, masks and what a pain this will be. Yeah, it is a pain, and so is social distancing, but we've got to do this, keep it safe for those people who are at risk. And unfortunately, for a lot of people who are over 50, they're one of the high risk areas. So they want to know they can come there and have a good trip and not worry about getting sick.
Right.
They'd be in so much trouble with their spouse if they did get sick. So they didn't want to get them in trouble.
No.
But let's. We could go on more at length here, but the bottom line is it's going to be, the key to me, you're doing something about it, Eric. You're taking measures. You're getting ready for the season. You're moving your dates. You're moving your dates at the back end. Right. You're advising people. You're taking the calls. You can't take the bookings, but you're getting ready. That's the key. You and other operators. There's some people who have the perception that Northern Ontario is shut down. It is not shut down. There are operators that are still going to be operating this season. And again, all based on when the government opens the doors. And again, for our American friends to come up, it's the same thing when the border opens. I wish I had answers, but nobody, even the Premier, doesn't have answers because they're listening to the medical experts. And, we'll know more as we go down the pipe on this. But the bottom line is you're getting ready, right, Eric?
We're getting ready. There's encouraging, there's encouraging news out there. And so when we do get the go ahead, we're going to hit the ground running. Absolutely. Okay.
And, I want to go back to the fishing because that's really key and pivotal. And can you believe we've got like less than 10 minutes left in this? And you mentioned to me this would probably go fast, and you're right, because we're both chatty guys. Anyways, and we can talk at length, and we're not even talking enough about the fishing. So I want to talk more about that. So the brook trout fishing, as you said, you're end of May through June, and this is going to be a late spring.
Right.
Will be good right into June or July, typically. But you also have fishing at the back end. Do you have any fishing for the brook trout in September, or is that pretty much it for your good window?
The season closes Labor Day. So this year, coincidentally, Labor Day is later. I believe it's the 7th of September. So we're going to pick up almost an extra week at the tail end of brook trout fishing. And if we have adequate rainfall and we have some cooler weather the last couple of weeks of August, we can run into a nice little back end of some good brook trout fishing. And so we'll see. The summer will tell us that as we go. But having said that, as you were speaking about, I was thinking back to the trip that we took down there the first time, and I was we were, and we'd talked before, and we were just beginning to develop a fly fishing business in Northern Ontario in conjunction with Algoma and going fishing, the other government guides, lodges. So I was still learning myself, and I remember you were we were there, I think it was the latter part of June, so that's when some of the surface flies are emerging, and it's a great time to fish for brook trout on the river, along with your normal streamers and zonkers and muddlers, so on and so forth. You can start having fun with, and what you were using was a Goddard caddis, I believe.
Yes.
And a technique of fishing that I have fine-tuned immensely over the years now, which was basically skating a surface lure, a surface fly, and this was a Goddard. And it was a really, really easy technique. And I think it's similar to straight line nymphing to some degree, where basically it's just you don't use a lot of line, maybe 20 feet or so, and you just do a roll cast out. And you just kind of, if you can envision when you bring in your line and your fly is along the surface, so you're just skimming it along the surface, and this is simulating how caddis hatch. And it is really, really exciting to see trout come up and smash that at the surface. And you did that. You called it right in front of me, just like Babe Ruth. And I think the third cast out hooked into a beautiful, beautiful brook trout, and it was like, okay. You got my attention.
So that actually brings up a point, and thank you for your kind words. I've been lucky because I've had a lot of great guides who've taught me. Obviously, I read books and watch videos like everyone out there learning to fly fish, but I've had a lot of good guides who gave me instruction. You have some very good guides there at the lodge that understand fly fishing and what needs to be used to catch the fish. And in your website, you have information. If people call you, you can give them more information about the flies to bring for both the pike and the brook trout. And by the way, for those that are interested, you can catch the walleye too on a fly there. I was throwing for pike and I kept catching those pesky 14 to 20 inch walleye.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's another topic. So I want to address some of the comments here on the side here. Peter, the software we're using, it's our first time using it. It seems to be working fairly well. It's called StreamYard. Hello to Patagonia. I love fly fishing in Patagonia. In fact, Eric, you went last year, I think it was, for the first time.
I went on a phenomenal fishing trip down with a good friend of mine, Harold Ball, to Chile and Patagonia, and we had a great guide down there for the 12 days, 13 days. Super Dave Jackson is his name, and just beautiful. The scenery, the vistas, the rivers. It's a good place to go if you haven't had a chance and you've used it. But yeah, it was a lot of dry fly fishing. That was a little bit of a new, like all dry fishing to some degree. We do some as well, streamer fishing, and that was quite productive too. But it was a lot of fun fine tuning and honing the dry fly fishing techniques, and it definitely was a great trip. I know you've been down there on a few occasions.
I have, and it's a great place. But let's get back to Northern Ontario and your place, because as much as Chile's great, it's international travel far away, and I want to go this winter, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to go. We'll see what happens. There's so many what ifs, but right now we're looking at the possibility that your place is going to be open, that the fishing is going to be there. Let's talk a little bit more about some of the fly patterns with the time we have remaining and what to bring. So for people coming there, I recommend anybody that comes to your lodge, I would bring a 4, a 5, and a 6 weight to bring for the brook trout.
Right.
4 weight's nice. Probably, the number one rod would be a 5 or a 6. You don't need a sink tip. Pretty much a floating line with a long leader, and varying the length of it based upon what you're throwing. Weighted streamers seem to work the best. Now, there is a pattern that I introduced to your lodge that I actually learned. For anybody that's watching from Manitoba, they know this pattern. It's called the beaver and tan, which is a fly that is a woolly bugger. Do you have it there, Eric, by any chance? You did last night, I know, when we talked.
Right. But, yeah, I don't have it in front of me here now. But you mean like a deceiver?
No, it's a woolly bugger called a beaver and tan. Remember that one I gave you?
Yeah. I don't have that in front of me right now.
Well, but don't worry. I can post that in our Facebook page for people who want to see it. For whatever reason, the brook trout, I've used it in Labrador, I've used it in different parts of Northern Ontario. It works really well in tannic stained water, and that's what you have in that river. It's got a bit of stain in it.
In there for the most part, pretty clear. But that's a go-to fly anywhere. We also, and I'm going to hold up a fly box here. We also have, there we go. These are called lefty deceivers. They're like a fish ball, so a weighted fly. And bait fish imitation, and these are great flies to use when you're fishing faster water, maybe 3 to 5 foot, like very quicker water that they drop faster. Obviously they're weighted, and a good active twitch retrieve definitely triggers strikes in that regard. And the neat thing about the river I find up there, is I spay fish as well, and swing spay flies and single cast, and that when you cast out, you can catch a fish when it hits the water as it's drifting through, as it starts to swing at the end, and then as you retrieve, they will hit in all 3 phases of your retrieve. So you have to be hanging on to your pole at all times and paying attention and fishing right through. It isn't just cast out and you let it drop and you retrieve it. It's a full retrieve right through all 3 phases. Yes,
and I kind of remember Peter experiencing that on a number of fish where he cast over to some structure with a streamer, and the one I had given him is this pattern right here. It's like a Zudler, only the one we were using we just got some rabbit fur here and a deer hair head, but we had weight on the front end, which was really key. And stripping it back with a jerk strip retrieve, and it really triggered the big brook trout to come out from structure, out of holes. And it was amazing because sometimes those big brook trout were in less than 2 feet of water, which happens in a lot of places with big trout. They're not what you think they're going to be in the deepest part of the pool. They could be on the sides, but the key is you get that aggressive take. And of course, you got dry fly fishing, and Mark Melnick has done a lot up in the Albany watershed in Northern Ontario, and he finds like the Chernobyl ants and big foam hoppers. They work well too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Chernobyl ants, also bombers. These are flies that are used on the West Coast for salmon. Big. So, I mean, these are flies that are not your number 15 or number 16. They're more like your number 4 or number 8 type of fly. So brook trout, as you well know, they've got a pretty voracious appetite. And quite often, if you're throwing out a small nymph so you may not get the same reaction as kicking out a bomber or a Chernobyl ant. And you can even modify and start to say put a dropper and a nymph on a Chernobyl ant. But I find they work great when you're fishing really fast water. So basically, and I learned about it because in guiding guests that were spin fishers, and I would use a float, much like steelhead fishing. Several times the fish would hit a float, like the blue and black blackbird floats, I believe they're called. And I think it was about the 4th or 5th time on one day I kind of thought, I need to tie up a fly that looks like this, which I kind of very rudely did with rubber bands and whatever I could find around camp. And then I heard about Chernobyl, and they are such a fun way to fish. Again, a similar idea to the swimming, the caddis. Yeah. And I mean, there's nothing more exciting than seeing, because the water is clear enough where you see these trout as the caddis or a Chernobyl ant or a surface flies going down. You see them rise to intercept it, and it's that's what we live for.
It is.
It's cool.
So I think probably right now, if people have got any questions, go ahead and put your comments up and address some of the ones that have been rolling by here. Yes, we're going to do some episodes, Josh, in Newfoundland. We've put up a few already in our YouTube channel, and we're hoping to go to Newfoundland this year and Labrador to do some more shows, but we'll see what happens based upon when the borders open and things open up a bit more. Yes, for people in Minnesota, when the border does open, it's not that far to get to Nakina, where you have your where you fly out of for the air base for your place, Eric. Yeah. I'm glad to see somebody got a 20-pound Atlantic salmon. Well done. That's a big fish. And lots of other questions. And yes, I love catching carp on a fly. That is so much fun. And I love to go to Cornwall and catch carp on a fly. I catch some around here. There's so much good fishing in Northern Ontario, and there's different flavors and different types of places to do it. I'm a big smallmouth bass fan. I love doing it, going to Northern Ontario to do that, anywhere from Northwest Ontario all the way across to Northeast. And the funny part about it is that a lot of people think you have to get in a float plane to go to all these places. I'm sorry, Eric, this isn't related to you, but you're like me. You like catching bass too on a fly. Yeah. You've got some pretty good bass fishing down around London area, but I call it Trophy Alley, that zone that's from Sault Ste. Marie all the way to Sudbury, that there's so many big fish, small, and it's all just off the Trans-Canada Highway.
Yeah, very accessible, definitely.
Very accessible, and that's what's really great. And then, for people wanting to do a fly-in trip, you're very accessible too, in terms of how to get to your place and once they booked a trip. You talk about what are the logistics, whether they're coming from the States or coming from Toronto. What are the different ways that people can get to your place?
Yeah, absolutely. So the majority of guests still seem to drive, and we're within, if you look at the Midwest, Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin, and say New York. We're within around a 14 to 18 hour drive from those, and then from Toronto, 12 to 14 hours roughly from there. So, a doable drive where if you get a good start in the morning, you can be up into the area in the afternoon, evening, and then overnight, and then we typically will fly you in first thing in the morning. So for those that aren't or live further away, there's typically there's some pretty good flights into Thunder Bay from a number of centers, and you can from there to get to us. You would need to rent a car. It's the route of least resistance, and affordability wise, it's about a 3.5-hour drive from Thunder Bay to Nakina, and then we would fly you in from there. So you travel so far straight north that you're not typically driving a long way west like you're driving out to Alberta or something like that. So you're getting Ontario changes so much from say Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury, that area, and north. It's really within a few hours you're now into a beautiful part of the world where you can get on that lake, or you can go for that hike, or get out in a kayak or canoe and not see anybody else. It's really in our back door. It absolutely is. And
that's something a very good point you brought up. How big is that Sagami Lake? It's a huge lake, is it not?
It's very expansive. It's a lake that is 18,000 acres, which is a little bit hard not for everybody to relate to that size, but 120 miles around the perimeter of it, about 15 miles in length and 4 miles wide, and a couple of hundred islands thrown in there just to add a few extra places to fish. So definitely it's a place where you're not going to fish this whole lake in 1 year or one visit or even years of visits, but what it does have is it allows everyone to kind of disappear into various corners and pockets and crannies, nooks and crannies of the lake, and there's fishing. The fishing is very good from one end to the other, so it's really a gorgeous body of water in that regard. The walleye, pike, and brookies are our main. There are whitefish there too, and then early in the spring and the fall, they're quite easy to catch. And we see a lot of caribou. We're right on the southern fringe of woodland caribou, so we have several sightings this summer. And of course, there's moose, bear, eagles, wolves, and not only are you able to go out and have some great fishing, but it's good to look up once in a while and have a look at what's around you as well. So just a beautiful place to spend a summer. We're very fortunate to have the lodge there.
Eric, I want to come back to the wildlife in a second. Now, we've gone over the hour as we thought we might, but that's okay. I want to address some of the comments that have been here. And yes, I think I pressed the right button. Hopefully we did record this so we can put this up in Facebook for those people who want to watch it later. If I didn't, I'm sorry. I'm still learning this program, but it's really working well for us. And we are going to try and do this every Wednesday and have different guests for those who have joined us. And what we're going to do is we're going to have lodge operators, we're going to have fly tyers, we're going to have celebrity fly fishers on here, and it won't just be me. It's going to be Mark, it's going to be Bill. We're all going to try and host this and make this a regular Wednesday event. Now, we may in the summer when we're all busy out on the road, obviously we might not have time to do this. I'm speculating we're going to do this until the isolation is finished, because everyone's going a little crazy, kind of like how we're putting up all the videos right now. And I appreciate everyone's kind words. We're happy to do this for you and give you something to watch so you don't lose your minds as you wait for freedom. And then the other thing I want to address is some of the people and great to hear about your 13-year-old son. That's a big rainbow, 25 inches. Wow. And I'm glad we were able to help you. And hello to Russia. That's the farthest away. You and Patagonia are the big winners, the farthest away watching our live broadcast. So thank you for checking in with us. Eric, I think I want to go back to your time with the wildlife. Hopefully it happens this season, but what I thought was really cool was every day you take food scraps. This is part of your recycling program, and you've got a place you put them on the other side of the lake. And if people are willing to sit there off in the boats, they can see the wolves come out and eat those scraps.
Yes. Yeah. Well, initially we did that to take care of the fish. We got some leftovers in that, and there were bears, and there still are that come in. But over time, there definitely has been a family of timber wolves that have come on to the idea that there is a source of some food, and of course they're they're willing to pretty much have everything, and so you do get a chance to perhaps get a glimpse of the timber wolf. From they're pretty skittish, though. If you get too close, they'll take off. But they're neat to hear. There's nothing cooler than fishing off a cemetery point, one of our favorite spots up there, and hearing the wolves howling in the background after dinner. We've had many guests that have had that experience, and it just that's one of those ones that just sit with you over time.
Okay, so I think I was looking at my notes here. There's about what we want to talk about. There's just two more things I want to come back to because I realized the one I didn't finish. So we talked about the rods and the lines, fly lines needed for the brook trout. For the northern pike, I'd recommend people bring a 9 or a 10 weight floating line, of course, for the top water and just below the surface, but especially a little later in the season, you need to go down a little bit deeper. I know you like using an intermediate line or a sink tip, right?
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, if you don't have as big of an arsenal of fly fishing rods and reels as I'm sure you and I know that I certainly have, a 6 weight and an 8 weight would be the two, I think, go-to rods. Okay. So we also have we tie our own flies at the lodge. We can, if you do have floating line and the fish are a little deeper in the water column, we'll set you up with a sink tip. And, our guides are very experienced at, for those that are maybe learning or thinking of coming into the art of fly fishing, of showing how and teaching techniques. And, but overall, that as you mentioned, 4, 5, or 6 weight for the brook trout, 6 being, I think, the choice I would have if I only had one, and an 8 to 10 weight for the pike fishing. And for me, I would lean a little bit towards 10 than 8, but an 8 will certainly handle. It's more your casting of larger flies as opposed to fighting the fish.
Fighting the fish, yeah, I agree, especially when it's windy on the lake. So the last thing I want to bring up, which I think is really fantastic, and obviously a lot of lodges are doing this, is your catch and release that you've got set up there.
Right.
And that, like, first of all, you don't keep brook trout. It's all catch and release for the brook trout, which is fantastic, which is why the fishery is so vibrant. And then for fishing on the main lake, people can keep a couple walleye. You do a shoreline, things like that, but it's a very minimal take. Again, why the fishing's so good and the fishery is so vibrant. And what I really found special the first time I went there, and you're continuing with it, works so well, is you've got a trophy club. And every week when people come, you have you give out shirts to those people who released a trophy. And I'll let you talk about the sizes to qualify for the trophy. But at the end of the week, everyone gets a shirt which says you caught whatever the species, a walleye, northern pike, brook trout, and it says Sagami Lodge Trophy Catch and Release Award winner. Can you talk about that? Because I know people really get excited about it and they want to win all 3 shirts. So.
Yeah, it's evolved into a kind of a very interesting thing where it's all about getting that first trophy fish and your T-shirt taken care of. But the whole thing evolved from over 25 years ago when I had a chance to buy Sagami Lodge and be on a lake that had such a great fishery. Is how to be and back then catch and release was still in its very infancy stage. So. How can we develop a trophy fishery, and what do we need to do to get in back the type of fish and sizes? And I had the very good help of Evan Armstrong, who is now retired with the Ministry of Natural Resources, biologist, and he was very instrumental in helping us establish some sizes. So basically what it was is that far north, fish live a long time. Pike and walleye typically live 20 to 30 years. It's hard to believe, but because there's only 5 months a year there isn't ice on the lake, they do grow very slow, but they grow very robust, so they're very thick fish. And the problem with harvesting too many of that type of fish is you can actually eliminate year classes and you can run into a problem because it takes them so long to grow to that size. So what we did is we picked a number, and it was 24 inches for walleye and 30 inches for northern, and they went back into the lake no matter what. So a little bit of pushback the first couple years, but I have to really tip my hat to guests because they really picked it up and went with the program. And we're very fortunate to have very good stewards of that now. So what it's evolved to over time is we average around 500 of those fish a summer now. So these are walleye from 24 to 30 inches and pike from 30 to 45 to 48 is some of our top end fish. So, if you take for example, a northern that is about 36 inches, well, no, let's take a 30-inch northern. Let's start right at that minimum. And they're around 8 years old, 9 years old, and they will spawn approximately 100,000 eggs roughly a year. So you release that fish in that year, and you've got another 15 years of that one fish spawning 100,000 or more eggs year after year after year. So you'll never be able to stock as well as nature will reproduce. So now you add 3 or 4 or 500 of those fish being released every year, and you can soon understand how the fishery can remain a high quality. Plus walleye that our average fish are 2 to 4 pounds, say around 17, 18 to 22 inches. They are basically, that's the ones that we target if you'd like to have shore lunch or take a fish home in that. But otherwise, we've taken really great care of our top end fishery. If you do get a qualifying fish, you fill out a ballot, you get a trophy catch and release t-shirt, and then we do draw 4 names for free trips for the next year. Just the whole thing was to encourage release of large fish. But I do have some guys that come in, and if they don't get that, especially if there's say 4 or 5 guys in a group and everyone has a trophy qualifier and the one guy doesn't, and he might have caught 300 fish in his week of fishing with us, and he's like, oh, I didn't. I said, listen, you're losing perspective here. It's just a t-shirt. But it creates a little fun. It's a little thank you from us for taking part and caring about the resource, and really we should be able to offer very high really high quality fishing for the foreseeable future. Okay.
Well, Eric, we've had a number of questions here and some nice comments here from people. And if you want to address any of these things, we can. But the bottom line is, I want people to know that right now, Northern Ontario is getting ready to open, but it's not opening yet, just like your lodge. Whether the resorts or whatever, I encourage people to call you. In fact, let me put up the banner here so that they know what your website address is, and that's the best way to reach you and get the phone number and give you a call. Certainly, I can attest to the great fishing. Bill's been there, and we can tell you how great the fishing is. He's got a great lodge. And more importantly, the protocols that we talked about that you're doing to help ensure people's safety, ensure your staff's safety, and also ensure the people in the community up around Nakina, their safety as well. And you're still working with the community, and more importantly, you're waiting to hear what NOTO has to say, as well as what comes from the health department. But the bottom line is, you're getting ready, you're taking measures, you're getting all those things in place so people can come up and not worry about getting sick.
Right. That's our goal, and we're looking forward to it. Can't wait.
And hopefully we'll have everything open up soon, sooner rather than later. And hopefully the border's going to open up for American friends so they can come up there. But we'll see. Our governments are doing prudent things to make sure that our public safety is top notch, right, and at the forefront here. But it's out of our hands. We'll see what happens. But I can tell you that if you want to get more information, I strongly recommend you go have a look at Eric's website. He's got a great website, lots of information. You've got videos. I think some of the videos we did, as well as with other TV shows you've had into your lodge. You can have a look at what the fishing's like. And more importantly, they can give you a call, Eric. They want to talk to you and just talk about 2021, this year, whatever. But just talk to you about what's available, learn more about the fishing, what to bring if they are coming, things like that, or talk to you about what the protocols are you've got in place for dealing with COVID-19.
Yeah,
absolutely. Everyone's nightmare.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of people out there who are looking forward to getting back out. And I encourage you to go to Northern Ontario when the day comes and we can all go back up there, I can't tell you how excited I am to get back up north. And I know the black flies will be quite anxious to see me because they miss me. But no, seriously, I think we're going to end on that note about the black flies. But for everyone out there, thank you for watching our first broadcast. And please go to our YouTube channel where you'll see a lot of the videos we're talking about, the ones we've done with Eric. You can find our latest ones this weekend. Tom Rosenbauer's latest episode of The Orvis Guide to Fly Fishing is going to be coming out, as well as the latest episode of The New Fly Fisher. So that's Saturday and Sunday morning at 9 o'clock. And then, of course, every day we're posting new videos that are from our past. I'm going all the way back to 2000, 2001 for some of the episodes. And it's funny, people like those just as much as they like the new ones. And that's great to see, because that means we're doing it right in terms of the way we structure the shows. And for all of you, if you've got any ideas, feel free to reach out to us, send us an email, send us a message through Facebook. We'd like to hear your ideas for this live event and what we can do in the future. Eric, thank you very much for being on this premiere show, and I hope to see you this summer.
Yeah, Colin, as always, it was a real pleasure, and best of health, and keep safe to everybody out there, and we will keep our hooks sharpened.
Good point. Take care, Eric.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for watching.